Good evening. I'm Dr. Gus Penix, President of the Nicholas County Board of Education. I'd like to welcome everyone to the October 4th, 2021 regularly scheduled meeting of the Nicholas County Board of Education. I'm calling the meeting to order at this time. Would you please rise and join the board in a moment of silent reflection? Give us this opportunity to reflect on those things for which we have to be thankful, but also clear our hearts and minds for the business we're going to consider here this evening. So if you would, please, a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Would you please join the board in saluting our country? Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May be seated. Item number 3 on this evening's agenda is to approve the minutes of meetings held on September the 7th and the 20th, 2021. You received those electronically. Are there any questions about those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes for meetings held on September the 7th and September the 20th, 2021?
So moved.
Mr. Amy moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mrs. Kaufman seconds. Any further discussion in regard to the minutes for September the 7th and September the 20th? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. We're on item 4 of this evening's agenda, which is discussion items and presentation. We have with us this evening, we're going to have an update from our architect, Mr. Ferguson with ZMM, and from Skanska, we have Mr. Pike.
I don't know where Chris went.
He always runs out at the
Yeah.
when he's needed.
He'll be right back.
Okay.
He said he would get a flash drive.
Oh, okay. You may need that to get us set
Okay,
up.
I knew it.
Maybe he'll be back in a flash.
There he is.
There he is.
Let me jump it off here real quick, sorry.
Oh, I saw his hair coming in that corner.
Pretty scary stuff. Sorry. Me too. Yeah, it's been absolutely amazing today, everybody. That's yours, right?
Yep.
That's something, right?
All right. Well, board members, Dr. Tetrick, we're here to present you with the construction and design updates for the Cherry River and Glade Creek sites. It's not as easy, Chris.
Go up, transfer up.
Wasn't just you, Kevin.
One you, Kevin.
All right.
You might have to go a long ways.
Okay, all right, I'll run across then. The agenda for this is we're going to look at the design status. Dave will give us an update on that. And then I'll I'll go into the construction status and show you some progress photos of the Cherry River campus.
It's not duplicating, so I was trying to move it. Where can you see on the
We'll keep going. Chris can get the presentation.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. You good?
I went up last Thursday, and had 3-4 left on the airport.
It is now.
All right. Again, design status, construction status, progress photos.
There we go.
So Dave, if you want to
Sure.
give everyone an update of the design status.
On the Cherry River project, the schematic design was submitted to the SBA last month. We have got their comments back. We're proceeding with design development. The design development should be completed by the end of October and submitted. Before we do that, we'll come to the board with drawings and everything. We've got to that point for your approval to go to the SBA. And then after that, the CD construction documents should be completed early to mid-December, and then we'll come to you again for that approval to go to the SBA before they can release it for bidding. The bid should bid January start, go out to bid in end of December, January 1st, and then receive bids first part of February. That would make it so we could award and get started when the weather breaks for the Cherry River project. The Glade Creek mass grading package. The site prep pre-bid is this Wednesday here at the central office. We'll start there and then we'll go to the actual site. The bids are due October 19th here at this office. Everything has been, it's been sent out. Kevin has sent it out to well over several thousand, according to FEMA, how that works. Contractors and all the local contractors as well that are interested or have copies. The building package, will be ready in May of 2022. The contractors, that's part of the bid documents. The site prep contractor will be completing his work while the building contractor brings the building up off the site building pad. And those bids should be completed around May, so they can do that and out the bid in May for the Glade Creek site building part.
So for our construction status on Cherry River, the early site work package, the contractor is complete. We're just waiting on them to submit some final paperwork for these federally funded projects. There's a lot of closeout documents you've got to have to turn over to FEMA, so we're just waiting for those documents from the contractor. ZMM has given them a deadline of October 22nd to turn over all those documents, so we should have everything by then. For Glade Creek, as Dave mentioned on the mass grading package, pre-bid conference here on October 6th. Bids due on the 19th, and then once we get approval of those bids from the board, once we present them to you, then construction can start on that early site work package for that site. Any of the building and remaining site construction will follow the design packages. Just to show you some photos of Cherry River, you've probably all seen this by now, but just wanted to include this into the presentation. This is the lower parking lot facing Bridge Avenue. We've got the parking lot facing the school. I've got our regular spaces here and some ADA spaces there. Legion Street goes up that way. Let's see. And then we've got Legion Street there. That's pretty much it for us.
Quite a difference in Legion Street, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Well,
Will
they paint a line in the middle of that 2-lane or just leave it one?
There's just one. There's a line up here with some directional areas. You can't really see it in this photo.
Might be a one-way.
This is, no.
Street,
Trying to remember.
No, I don't
No,
think it's
it's not.
one way. I don't
No.
think they
It's like
can
a
make
paint
it.
line, it's gonna be two-way.
What Uncle say, can they
There's a
pass
line
on
up
it?
the top, that's the only place there's a line.
Yeah. We could take a look at it for the next package.
But the bus direction, as far as Rocky's not here, we're short.
Who's
There, you
not
were
here?
there. Okay, I was gonna say, you may be able to speak to, you're gonna have one way for buses though, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I
would
was
you
just
mind
wondering-
explaining that, Rocky?
Yeah, if you got a bus going out, what if you got a car coming down? That's why I was wondering if this is gonna be a one-way.
I think the final drop-off of pickup may yet be determined, okay? I don't know right now for sure if they let them off right there in front of that red car, or they might let them off in the corner so the buses can go back out on Bridge Avenue.
So they don't have to.
But it's yet to be determined, I would say, where you let them off right there on Legion Street or on the corner there, they let them go Bridge Avenue.
Yeah, during the building construction, there's kind of going to,
Yeah.
those entrances may
Yes, they're
shift
going-
from
yes.
time to time, so
Yes.
that's another reason not to go ahead and
Right,
divide that up.
keep in mind, this is not the final grading, it's not, or not, the final grading is not the final paving.
Yeah, even though these lines are shown on there, there's a top coat, 1.5 inch, I think, that goes on top of that, wear course that goes on top of the asphalt.
Did we do the landscaping there, through there, the grasses, or were they already there?
No, this is already there.
Oh, that looks nice.
You did some filling here where the curb is, didn't you?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
part up through here, yeah, but these bushes and stuff.
Yeah.
we didn't do that.
It's interesting seeing the final product, because you remember how many times we were questioned and people thought everyone was crazy, the wall was high, it's not so high
Yeah,
now.
it's
is
not,
it?
not that long.
So prejudging the final product can be difficult.
Why is the pre-bid on Richwood so late?
So late,
Why is it so late in the year? You said the pre-bid on Blade would be October?
That's for the early site work
that's for the site
package.
work package.
Just like we did an early site work package here for the parking lot, we're doing an early package there as well. It's actually much later than this one was.
So basically, you were saying that maybe by, did you understand you right, like when the weather breaks, March, April,
For the building
for
package.
the building package, and
And
then,
the remaining site there.
and then Glade Creek might be like May or so.
The building
Building
pad,
package.
the building pad will be ready in May.
Yeah.
It's gonna take them, whatever time they start until May, they're slated to get done with the building pad. Now, that's not the entire site, there's like 800 some thousand cubic yards of earth to be moved.
I'm talking about like the actual building of the building.
Right, that will start when the building pad is completed in May.
In May.
The-
So-
they-
March, April, and in May.
The pad is the earthwork, not the concrete.
Correct, it's the earth that the concrete and everything sits on. There'll be all kinds of foundation work and a lot of steel will be going up as soon as that gets ready.
Now, they'll have to do a lot of hacking in there, won't be?
There's a lot of rock there, so
In areas.
there's a lot of cut. And there's probably will be some fill in areas, there have to be to balance the site.
Yeah.
Right now, the site's going to be balanced, so we won't be hauling things off.
Right. Off-site.
Off-site. That's the intent.
So in February, we said, or you said, construction would start in July on the Richwood School and would start in November for the Glade Creek. What's your projection times now?
The projection time is that we can start the building as soon as it's bid, we can get started in some package, some form or shape or fashion. As long as we can get materials, as long as we can get things on site, they can start drilling foundations and doing that. So they can start within 2 weeks, as long as we get the SBA and FEMA and everybody to award the project in time. Whenever everybody gets their ducks in a row to award the project and approve everything, we can start construction on Cherry, you're talking about Cherry River, correct?
Well, both sites.
Okay.
Yeah, because you said Glade would start construction in November.
That's when at one time, we looked at trying
Trying
to
to start
start,
that in February.
and I think that was the site.
Well,
No,
no, you said the mass grading package would go out in July
that's
and it
before
would be
we,
complete in July. You said that in February.
okay. that's before we start changing everything. We've redone the whole site on that project because we were over the LOD and we had to go back and reorganize that site to be balanced. And that's what held us up on that. But we're ready to go to bid as soon as we're out to bid. You know, we get that package bid, and it's going to take several months to get that site work completed. That's a big site.
Site work and then the bid.
Yes, it has to be.
I can't hear you. Greg.
Okay, I'm sorry, the
The
building,
microphone works. I think.
can you hear me now?
No, it's not.
Is that better?
Yeah,
Better?
yeah.
The site work is out to bid, the building pad will be complete in May, and the building construction should be out to bid in May as well of 2022, so that we can get construction and bids at the end of May, 1st of June, to start construction when the site building pad is completed.
That's at Glade?
That's at Glade.
Yeah, okay, now Richwood.
Richwood,
Because we moved all the children out of there so that
Right.
construction would be expedited.
and the construction will start, if we can start in January, we'll start in February, because the bids will be out to bid in January. We typically don't want to bid anything over Christmas because you just won't get bids.
Are the material costs leveling off yet or coming down?
They're slightly coming down. With Hurricane Ida, it pushed a lot of plastics, PVC, piping, stuff like that. Since the availability of those became scarce, they kind of pushed the price of those up. Dry fall painting, like again, exposed ceiling, that's been hard to get as well. So the prices on that have escalated. We're hoping, keeping our fingers crossed, that bidding these out in January, February, and getting bids around that time, hopefully a lot of this stuff will be eased by then. The stuff for Glade Creek, those materials, very minor materials that we need there is mainly just some storm drain stuff. We're hoping that the price on those has stayed pretty steady, so I think we'll be okay there. But the other materials, if we wait a little bit longer, then it'll be a bit more favorable. I don't have a crystal ball, but that's what we're being told.
So you said on the Richwood site, we projected 2023, it will be completed. Now we're going to move to 2024, are we? If everything goes well.
Gosh, I can't remember. I think we were still at.
And Glade was at 2024, so now we're going to have to move to 2025, 2026 before it's completed.
I think we talked about Glade being a 2.5-year construction time, I think, if I recall. And then Cherry River was because of the phasing, and I don't know if it's been redone because we changed the phasing. We did have 4 to 5 phases, and I think we reduced that to 2.
It's 2, yeah. So
And
That's what you said, 2 phases.
that reduced the construction time considerably because we were able to move those students out and we could build more. So I think that was at the most a 2-year construction time frame.
yeah.
So that would put it at
It started
2020, if it starts in 2023, or 2022, that would be 2024.
You're going to have to do those deep foundations at Cherry River, so, those can be done. And kind of weather, I don't think can have too much impact on those.
It shouldn't.
I think the thing on the time is we'd love to have it done tomorrow, but nobody has a crystal ball and can say that it's going to be done because we don't know what the situations might be with prices of things or if we can get things and that type of thing. But hopefully our best thinking is maybe 2 years on Cherry River, maybe 2.5 on the Glade Creek project. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, the only issue we're having right now with construction materials is roof insulation, and we would be so far out with that. and doors are extremely long lead item. Some HVAC equipment is long lead, and some steel, but not all steel. So we were revising how we look at this as far as steel is concerned, so that we're not building into it long lead items when you design the building. That's some of the key things we're trying to do.
I think, I'd like for the public to understand that, I mean, like you do, you're doing the preliminary design, that has to go through steps, and then you have to come back and then do the next level of design, that has to go through a series of steps and approvals, and then we get to the final approval of the bidding and that type of thing. It just doesn't happen in a 2 or 3 day period of time. It takes a little bit of time to do each of those aspects.
How many agencies are we having to deal with for approval? There's like,
I think there's three or four levels of approvals that we have to get.
With each aspect.
With each aspect.
Not mentioning, fire marshal's office, Department of Highways, those other entities as well, you also mentioned, SBA, FEMA, DEM. There's a lot of them.
Well, there's a lot of things changing and going on too, and we don't know what will happen in the next year or two.
Yeah.
Whether we'll get our shelves stocked back up, or you can buy a new car maybe, if you want to,
Right.
or whatever. It seems like we're short on everything.
Yeah, a lot of people, I'm sure you read about the chip shortage and stuff like that. That also affects, any kind of HVAC equipment, building controls, stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Just like it affects the automotive industry, it affects those too.
Right.
And lack of, I know people talk about the lack of workers in the restaurant and those types of things. It's the same thing with production of materials. So they deal with the same issues.
Did you say you sent out bids on the Glade Creek site? The ground?
We advertised for bidders, and then Kevin has also advertised for bidders the way that FEMA wants him to advertise.
It's over 6,000, right, Kevin? 6,000.
6,000 advertisements went out for people to bid that project.
For the site, correct?
And that'll be the same way for the building. Same scenario has to happen for the building.
Do you plan to be up there Wednesday? Okay.
Yes, sir. We'll have to see how many people show up.
and that's going to be here.
Yes, sir. 10 o'clock here.
This Wednesday?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it?
It's a pre-bid.
Bids out of the office here.
It's a pre-bid. It's a mandatory pre-bid for anybody who wants to bid the site.
It's basically where the contractors come and they're able to ask questions, go look at the site, things like that.
We give them like a pre-bid package.
Yeah, we tell them what's expected of them and basically to play the ground rules as to how to bid.
Any further questions?
See you Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Are the current drawings pretty much holding?
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Item B is under discussion items of presentation. Lydia Young and Christina Chapman with special education are going to
What did you
present.
say? I didn't hear you.
I said,
He said he's messed up her name twice.
Come on down.
Maybe you must be thinking of it.
Yeah. I worked with Lydia McHugh at the,
Well, that's what I usually get called. And then people want to know if I got divorced. I'm like, no, I didn't get divorced.
Oh, yeah, that was last time.
Yeah.
I know it's Lydia Burkholder, so.
Yeah, that's what you called her last time.
You all give me a hard time.
So you're bringing in the forces here.
Yes, I brought my reinforcement. I wasn't sure what to expect.
Yes.
Listen, I just did this like an LSIC. That's the way I approached it from old school days. So first of all, we would like to thank Dr. Penix and Dr. Hendricks and the board members for giving us the opportunity to give you an update. So I'm just going to go over some general information, and then I'm going to ask my girls to talk a little bit, and then we'll answer questions if you have any. Currently, we serve 614 students with disabilities with an individual education plan. Roughly 31% are identified as having a specific learning disability. 22 are in our speech and language impairment. 12 are other health impaired, and 12% make up the intellectually disabled. Now, these students, 99% of them are on track to graduate with a regular diploma. That means they spend the majority of their time in our general ed classrooms with support from special education. So when we invest in our general ed teachers, we're also investing in our special ed students because they benefit from that instruction. And we've spent a lot of time in curriculum and working with teachers, getting them to understand that our students need that high quality instruction, just like all students. And they may not be able to do all the work, but they certainly benefit from hearing that good content instruction. And so we've spent lots of times in meetings talking with teachers, Dr. Lee and I, and have really worked towards getting that goal accomplished. Now, sometimes our students do need additional support, and when that is warranted, they are pulled into a special education classroom and are provided with some specialized instruction that way. So we do have students that receive support within the classroom as well as out. That leaves about 1% of our population that is on our alternate path for graduation, and they will stay in school till they're 21. And they are now earning the same credits as what our students earn on their regular diploma. So they're expected to earn the 20, I think it's 22 now, Tammy, is that correct? Credits to graduate?
Yes.
22. So on their transcripts, it shows that they earn 22 credits as well for their alternate diploma. Our Individuals with Disability Act, or IDEA, and the West Virginia State Policy 2419 are the documents that govern what we do every day. And a lot of times teachers will call, and the first thing I say is, hold on, I've got to pull policy and look to see what it says. So sometimes teachers and schools and principals get frustrated with us, but we have to follow what policy says. From our budget, fully or partially fund 6 professional positions and 17 service positions. We also fund a board-certified behavior analyst. We fund an occupational therapy assistant and our orientation mobility, and we also provide homebound instructors for our students who are out due to a physician's order. We certainly have had a lot of challenges, and you all have heard me talk about our challenges this past spring, but the opioid crisis still continues, even though that's been overshadowed by the global pandemic. We are still seeing issues with our students who come from families and drug exposure. The pandemic has added a whole new layer. We are seeing lots of behavior issues, which I've talked to you all about this spring. We have a lot of students who are not living with their families. And I don't know if Christy and Sarah are going to speak to that, but you know, when we're making phone calls, we can't sometimes find kids. And Sarah works with our youngest ones. She does our birth to 3 transitions. And so right now we have a 3-year-old that we're currently trying to find because they've been in so many spots to provide services. So not only aren't they with their families, they're being shuffled around, but we also know that they have special education needs. And we need to get them in our building and get our hands on them and start providing services. And so that's been very frustrating. You all know the foster care system is just in West Virginia has just been overwhelmed, and a lot of it is from the opioid crisis. So we've had a lot of challenges that way. Some of our things that I think we really need to brag about, and sometimes that's hard to do because we don't, you know, we just feel like we're doing our job. But one of the goals that I had coming into this position, I wanted to get a full-time OT and physical therapist, occupational physical therapist. And we have 2 wonderful ladies that applied and are now working for us. The reason our contracts were great, they did a good job, they come in and provided the services, but when you have somebody that's here and wants to be here and is with us full time, they are just a wealth of information and a lot of resources. Our occupational therapist has done a superb job. She gets in there, she's very detail-oriented, and she really makes sure those kids are getting what they need. And she provides suggestions for families as well as the classroom teachers. So that's been really great. That was one of the things that I really wanted to see happen. We have a psych intern this year, and that's thanks to Dr. Tiedrich. She helped us out a lot with that, and then April went back to school and got that, and so she's currently working with us in that position, and that's been great. She is just a wealth of knowledge as well. She comes from industry, or not industry, clinical setting, so and she also is one of our teachers. So she knows the school part of it and the clinical part of it, so she's been a really great asset to our team this year. We also worked with the state of West Virginia and WVU to get an SPLA intern, and she's currently working with us. She will finish her master's degree in 2 years, and then I think the requirement is they stay in West Virginia for 2 years.
What is an SPLA?
Oh, sorry, a speech and language pathology assistant.
Gotcha.
So she hasn't finished her degree yet, but she's working on it, and that was an agreement that WVU worked out with the Department of Education, because typically we don't hire 4-year degree people. We are one of 10 counties that are participating in that this year. So we've been real fortunate. We think we got a really good one, and we're hoping maybe she'll want to stay here in our area when she graduates. Another thing and this isn't just our department, we worked with Rocky's department, we worked with Tammy, we worked with food service, but what we provided during the closure for our students was phenomenal. I mean, we were at a state meeting and we listened to other counties. Other counties didn't do quite what we have been able to do in our county, and that was through the support of Dr. Tiedrich as well. You know, when I went to her and said, you know, our kids have to have services. You know, we may be closed, but we have kids that have to have services. She said, make it happen. Talk to Rocky, get it. I mean, the parents could call the bus garage and say, hey, my kid needs to come to school on Wednesday. And Ralph made arrangements for a bus to go out and pick that student up. They came to the school, they completed what assignments they needed, they got the instruction that they needed, they were provided meals, and the buses took them back home. So that, you know, I felt like it was everybody, that we just all really got together and said, we have to make sure our kids are learning and being provided services. So I think that was one thing that we really did a good job with. The COVID recovery services, that was a grant that Christy and I wrote. We are in year 2 on that. We provided extra tutoring for students. That was after school. Some of it we did, if students were on distance last year, we were able to hire some people that did not work in the day so they could provide some assistance during the daytime. We did extra social work, so if they were having social needs, the social workers went out. We did extra tutoring or counseling for those students as well. And even if they called and made contact with the parent, we asked them to do that twice a month. If the parent said, you know, we're good, we don't need anything, they still followed up at least once a month just to check in on our students. And so that was really good, and we're in year 2 on that. And the other thing that everybody always brags about is our tech support. We employ tech support for 2 hours a day for 4 days a week. So any student that calls in with issues and needs any type of tech support with their iPad, Nicole was able to talk with them over the phone, and if she can't get that worked out over the phone, she makes arrangements for that iPad to get into the building, and we get it worked on and fixed and returned to the families so that they can not have those barriers on top of other things. And we plan on starting that as soon as we get our COVID recovery tutors hired tonight. Once we get those hired, the next board meeting, we will start back with that. And that's been something that a lot of our families have really appreciated, being able to call and get help immediately in the evenings if they need it. So this evening I have with me, Rachel, you starting? Rachel Hendricks. She is our school psychologist, and she has been a great asset. She has been the only person to do this job for how many years?
6 years.
6 years.
Year 6.
And she will do whatever has to be done. And we have had 100%.
Bring them all. Bring them all.
We have always had 100% compliance on our 80-day timeline, even though we only had her. But now she worked a lot of hours to make that happen, and that's something that we're judged on from the state is our 80-day timeline.
Yes.
And Rachel has made that happen. And this year, with the 2 of them working, we're doing really well. They were turning in reports today that we're due in November. So we're staying ahead of the game with both of them, and that's been really, really good. And Rachel, what is the ratio supposed to be?
The recommended ratio from National Association of School Psychologists, they recommend 1 psychologist for every 500 to 700 students.
So as you can see, we're a little bit, we need some more support there, but But we're making it work. Rachel's done a really good job, and like I said, April Clinton, and she has done an excellent job in the few weeks she's been here, and we just feel like we can let them both run. So, do you all?
We make a great team.
And they do make a really good team, that's true. And then Sarah Kuiper, she is our preschool coordinator, and she does an excellent job. And then she takes care of all the preschool, and I said the birth to 3 transitions. So when kids turn 3, they transition to an IEP if they qualify. And she takes care of all those and does all this.
A lot of students with a lot of needs coming up, especially, just like Lydia said, students that aren't in their own homes. And so that's something that we're facing tough.
Is that mainly how you find your students?
We receive notification from the state,
Oh, you do?
and then we go from there along with the information that we've been sent, but oftentimes it can be incorrect. So there's a little bit of digging that will go along with it. Yes.
And then Christina Chapman, she's our special education coordinator. She also does our 504s and works with statewide testing.
And 504 is?
It is. I wrote that down because I still have to do that. It's a plan similar to an IEP, but it provides accommodations for students with disabilities. And so that may not need specialized instruction. IEP provide accommodations and specialized instruction. 504 is just those accommodations. So like extended time on assignments, or if they need, a diabetic student might need an aid, that they wouldn't need academic support, but they need that the 504 plans provide for that.
Are they identified as special needs, or do they?
They have to qualify with a disability, so they have to either have a diagnosis of, say, anxiety, ADHD, diabetic condition, just whatever they're, and then we from there determine if they need accommodation. Some students qualify for a 504 plan, but they're doing fine in the classroom right now and don't need accommodation. So we sometimes make them eligible, but don't actually write the accommodation plan. But we review those weekly, or not weekly, annually. So I mean, are we talking?
Yes, you can go ahead.
I was going to say
go
come up there, but we had, when I started, Lydia was before me. I look back, her last year, full year, she had 55 kids with 504s. We now have currently 79 kids with 504 plans. So we've seen a huge increase. A lot of anxiety diagnosis is due to the pandemic, I think part of it, and just anxiety in general is up overall, social emotional learning. So that has been a big increase. So and the state is working on forms. They told us last week they'll be here this week. I've not seen them, so that is exciting because it's usually left up to counties and it differs. So then when we get ones from other school systems, it's a little bit challenging. So that's been a good thing that they're supposed to work on that. And I hope to. I do all those meetings, and usually in the month of September, so that's a lot of meetings to have in 1 month. So I'm working on training a school team for each school, but that's just, I didn't want to push that out with the pandemic right now, so I'm hoping to. Summersville Middle is doing that for me. They had a teacher or a counselor that had done that previously at her other job, so she has taken that on, so that's been wonderful. But that's that in a nutshell.
Very good.
So there's a lot going on. We stay busy. We.
I know you're busy. Because, I mean, you know, it's so good to hear from you guys, and for us, the board, to hear from you, to see you, and kind of put a face and a name with, you know, what's going on out there. So many times I think the public is not very much aware of how many services that we are providing to our children. And not only that, but the people that are really, like Sarah, I know you're going into these homes and just toddlers in the house. You're trying to identify those children who, so you catch them early on, who have a certain need or whatever. But we just need to, I want the board to hear it, but I want the public to know we're not just a regular standard, just a teacher in a classroom. We have a lot of services going on, and like you said, a number of children, 31% there, that we're addressing specific needs that they have that have been identified. And so, but it's just good to have you all here.
We have an excellent preschool and kindergarten program as well, where we host 200 students in preschool, 234 students in kindergarten. In preschool, we have 12 classrooms. Kindergarten, we have 13 classrooms across the county. Our preschool is tri-collaborative, which that is unique throughout the state with child care, Head Start. and board. It does come with a little bit of challenges, but that only means good things for our students in the end, and that's what we're looking for.
Well, I'll have to also say that I've received visits from the State Department of Ed concerning our program that Sarah leads, and it's been noted that it's probably one of the best programs, if not the best program in the state. So, you know, and they never get pats on the back. I know that, and they know that, and the state knows that, but that's, you know, that's where we are. And this team before you is small. We only have 5 people running these massive numbers. And up until us bringing April on, you know, poor Rachel has, she struggled. I mean, she worked evenings late, I mean, and you never heard a word. And, you know, I can't say enough good things about Lydia's leadership. And, you know, and Christy, I mean, it's wonderful to have the confidence in your special ed department that they're going to handle it. You know, we have a lot of counties are in the middle of lawsuits and issues and services not being provided. She keeps us going, and anyway, does a fantastic job. We get rave reviews from the Department of Education. I can't say enough good things, and like I said, this is a very, very small group to be doing the job that they're doing, and they're doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah, and we, or you in particular, are serving 1,400 to 1,500 students.
And we have 614
614.
with IEPs, individual education plans.
Okay, with 15 or 31% of
31% of that total is identified as specific learning disabilities. There's 13 eligibility categories, is that right, Rachel?
Actually counted.
Okay.
But in addition to that 600, if they have a student who's referred and doesn't even meet the needs for the IEP, they have to test those students.
Yes.
So when they talk about, you know, the recommendation of being 1 per every 500 or 600, we've got 3,500 kids. You see, we've got 2 people servicing, so.
And in addition to doing the psychological evaluations for all of the referrals, we're also doing counseling and therapy in the schools, as well as risk assessments for students that need those services as well.
And
So-
all those may not be yours, or they may not turn out to be yours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we started a new initiative, I think it was last year or the year before, headed by Rachel, of doing risk assessments for students who are, you know, make threats against other individuals or themselves, and she's trained our personnel to do risk assessments. That doesn't happen in very many counties, but we're doing that here. So there's lots of great things. I mean, I can't say enough good, and to snag April, yeah, you know, like we did.
We hit the jackpot.
We hit the jackpot. So you've got someone with the teacher and Christy with her vast knowledge. Like I said, I can't say enough good, and Lydia's leadership is phenomenal.
Well, to reiterate that, a parent came up to me from Panther Creek, and she said, I just want you to know she has a special needs child. I am very, very pleased with the teachers at Panther Creek and the leadership from the central office. My child looks forward to going to school every day. And
Yeah, I know in the past, we've had families move here from out of state for the services they get in this area. So,
And I captured a post from Summersville Middle School of a parent really praising the support and how her child loves to come to school because of the attention and support from the special ed. So it's throughout. It's throughout our schools, and the leadership here is where it comes from.
I think it's important also to note that there are 14 noted exceptionalities the children come to school with. And we've identified kids probably across that whole spectrum.
Yes.
And I would say you could start with gifted and talented. That's one exceptionality. We have children who just have learning disabilities. I know when I was superintendent, I learned very quickly that a child can have a learning disability and be gifted.
Yes.
And so they can have multiple exceptionalities in this that have to be diagnosed, tested, and then proven to be the case. You know, and then you develop an IEP plan, an individual educational plan, with the staff and the family of that child to meet that kid's educational needs. I don't think the public, again, sees all the things that go on behind the scenes, so to speak, to really provide quality educational services to our children. And then we also serve a plethora of other situations, severe and profound. And so we have people that are in those categories. And it's just a lot of work that goes on, and that's the reason we wanted you to come in here and tell us about yourself.
You want to tell how hard we were working?
Yeah. But we're very proud. I mean, you're doing the yeoman's work, and you're getting the job done and serving the kids. That's what's important.
Well, and I think I could speak for them. It is hard work, but we all enjoy the work that we do, or we wouldn't be here. And we do laugh a lot. Sometimes I say we just have to laugh about this because if we don't, we're going to cry. So we have a fun time, and we all get along well together. But it is hard work, and we're busy.
And I'm sure Donna, superintendent, would agree that when she has good people like you all, that makes her job easier, which makes our job easier. So we really appreciate y'all.
I told her when I got this job, I said when I was principal, I always tried to take care of everything that I could take care of without passing it on to somebody else. So, and if something happened, Jack Darter was the person I reported to. I called Jack and say, hey, this is what happened, this is what they're, So I try to take care of everything I can. You guys have a lot going on, and I try to take care of that.
And she does. I mean, honestly, I just, I tell her, she'll give me an update on something, and I'll say, take care of it. I trust you. You just, best way, and she does, and it's a relief for me.
And it's good to have that type of support from her and everyone as well.
Well, it's like averaging out 100, 125 apiece, students to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes students need more help. You can't say you got an hour today or this or that. It may take one all day or half a day or whatever.
And we provide our students with, we have a lot of aids. I mean, that's not decreased. I mean, we've increased numbers in support. And if Lydia comes to me and says we need an aid, then they get an aid. We don't argue about it.
Right now we have 40 special education teachers in the county and 36 instructional aides that help in classrooms for SPL, speech and language paths, and then we contract with one because we aren't fully staffed there. We're still looking for one more. And then 7 support OT, PT, vision impaired teacher, hearing impaired teacher. So, and they all do a great job too. I mean, if they didn't, and I tell them that all the time, if they weren't doing their job and working with families and students, that would make my job a lot harder. So, we all work together, and they are on the ground doing the hard work.
And they're good. We've got great special ed teachers and aides.
We do. And when we get a new person, we've got a new teacher at Birch River, and we've spent a lot of time over there working with her, and she's going to be fine and do a great job. So, but we just try to provide them with enough support that they can feel confident in doing the job.
Well, when I was principal, I had a hearing impaired child. And so I determined that I was going to learn how to communicate with him. And so he works locally, and so I always see him, and when I go up, I go, and he knows what I'm saying. So it was a joy to work with that particular boy. But there's a lot of things that go on in our schools: the hearing impaired, the vision impaired, and all that, those types of things. And we're very proud of the work that you all are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for it. So, anything else?
Good job.
And Madam Superintendent, I'll let you choose the next department that you'd like to have to come in and speak with us.
Okay.
Okay? And I'll leave that up to you for the next one there. Item 5, action items. Approval of the lease agreement with the Nicholas County Airport Authority. Board members, you received a copy of that in your electronic agenda. Are there any questions, Madam Superintendent? Are you addressing
I mean,
that?
I can talk. There's not a lot. Melissa is pretty versed in the document. They're requesting for a 3-month extension, And after speaking with the architect, that is not an issue at this time. So it will help. I don't want to interfere with the services, with air evac and supporting our community. So I definitely see fit to do that, to do the approval for 3 more months.
Why do we lease that to the airport?
We-
Because it's got flying vehicles coming in and out, or-
We didn't. This was a,
Free.
this was the building commission had a lease with them.
Yeah.
And we do not, I mean, they had a 5-year renewal, and they've agreed to just do a 3-month by 3-month renewal with us instead of keeping that 5-year.
Yeah.
If I say something wrong, correct me.
Sure.
But that's, so we're not getting any money from them. It's just they're trying to make a move, is my understanding, to maybe the airport. And so,
Do
This
we-
just allows some continuity and services while they move until they can
Right.
get situated so they can get moved.
They're sure that they can
yes.
have it for a certain time.
Yeah.
Do we know that we're gonna have to move some dirt in that area?
We are fine right now. He said
The
we're
road will be
fine.
above that,
Yes,
the
yes,
entrance.
yes.
Okay.
Yep, he said we were fine.
So far as we know, we'll be able to keep that house.
Yes, there is, yes, it is
I'm
not
sure
in the
they'll probably
plans to
want
remove
their
it.
hangar, I don't know.
The hangar, yes, they're wanting the hangar,
They're going to take the hanger with them.
Yeah.
yeah. But the rest, no.
Any further questions in regard to the agreement with the Nicholas County Airport Authority? Madam Superintendent, items B and C.
I'm asking to remove those. August the 31st, we received guidance from the CDC that we could use antibody testing for students and staff for those who had previously had COVID, and that if the individuals tested positive for antibodies, that we would not have to quarantine students and staff. So I reached out to our providers and told them of this decision and asked if they would be interested in providing maybe testing for students and staff, and they were both interested in serving the community and our schools. And last week, I did also say, you need to talk to the health department and make sure, because I'm just going by the guidance I received. The health department confirmed, yes, we can use it for antibody testing. Last week, CDC changed their minds, reversed it, and said we can't use antibody testing for that purpose. So I did make contact with Camden as soon as I got the notice, and then Martha Ruth made contact with the New River. So to tell them they might want to stop their orders, and I don't know if they got the machines or didn't get the machines, but the CDC did a reversal, and that's why we don't have an MOU. Unfortunately, because it would have been a good thing, because it did save some of our kids. While it was active, they went down and got tested in, was it Fayette County? I think it was Kroger or something, and they got tested and they were able to come back, and it was good for 3 months. But anyway, it's short-lived.
All righty, so the only thing that we're asking for approval tonight is item A under action items.
Well, she has a D.
And, yeah, the MOU with the SESC for the payroll assistant,
Oh, is that,
That's
the
on D.
amended agenda.
that's the D, right?
Yes.
It was in the board packet, the amended agenda was in the board packet. As you know, we've experienced quite a bit of turnover with our payroll department. Peggy Gregory retired. She's done a phenomenal job, and she retired. We posted it for service. We filled it. She was there for a month, and she decided that she wanted to go back to her old position. So then we posted it as a professional, and she was here about a month and decided it was not for her. There's some personal things going on. So now here we are getting ready. We don't have a payroll person, and we're coming up on a busy time of the season. So in speaking with Mr. Hess, it was decided that, for continuity purposes, if we would just contract with the SESC to hire like a substitute for that position, and then post again in January.
That's gonna be a hard position to fill because she literally absorbed 2 or 3 positions and
It's a
Peggy was a worker. And people get up here and realize how involved the central office is. It's pretty involved. And she absorbed a lot.
And you're getting end of year, end of calendar year reporting. That's going to be pretty heavy in December, January,
Yes.
isn't it, Mr. Hess?
Yes, we have not only the quarterlies, we have W-2s prepared, we have some PIAs statements need to be prepared and sent, just in getting, we was our close out for calendar year. There's a lot to do in the end of the year, so it'd be tough just get that done, much less try to train someone to do that.
So I'm assuming we work with the SESC to develop a job description to get that person.
Correct,
hired?
correct.
Okay. All right.
So if we get like a sub in there, are they gonna be able just to hit the ground running with all this stuff? I mean,
Is Peggy working with them?
is Peggy gonna work with them?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I guess if that person might turn into more of a permanent person if we go
Well,
that route.
hopefully she applies for it.
Yeah, hopefully Peggy.
Hopefully Peggy applies for it. If she doesn't apply for it, we're gonna be in bad trouble, but hopefully Peggy applies for the position.
Yeah.
And if she applies for the position, we'll be solid till December.
Until December,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Is that part of the CARES?
No, it's a regular position, but going through the SESC and it being a part-time position,
Just
you know,
gives us some
it gives us
flexibility.
flexibility and she would have the opportunity to apply. She's indicated she would, so, and I hope she does, because we really,
So, but I
really
mean,
need
what
the
I'm saying is
support.
that's not gonna mess with her retirement, right?
No, no.
Because she has so many hours she
Well,
Well, they're
can
not,
do that.
she's under like the original system or whatever, so she's already checked into
Okay.
all that.
any further questions from Mrs. Atkins in regard to the SESC, the payroll clerk position through the SESC? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve action items A and D as presented this evening?
So moved.
Mrs. Kaufman moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Berry, second. Any further discussion in regard to action items A and D? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, motion passes unanimously. Item 6, consent items, finance, payroll, contracts, and approval of the FY 2021 financial statement. Mr. Hess.
Yes, sir. So the first thing is approval of payment of current invoices. Do you have any questions there?
I think I noticed utilities are now multiple schools listed out at the size of those to one school.
Yeah, we've been trying to do that on all of them.
That clarifies a lot right there, so. Any questions in regard to current invoices or payment of current invoices?
So the next item is,
Contract with Nick Suter for Blade Creek Present Program.
yes, they would like to have him come in and present to the children there, and so I included that as well in their packet for your approval.
Is that program like a mini concert or is it more of an educational?
I honestly don't
Hands
know.
on learning.
Stephen
He's been
Foster,
around.
wasn't it? It was about.
It is both.
Sorry?
This is both.
Both?
It is.
I know-
Musical theater.
Yeah, Elkins has a very nice theater up there, a huge auditorium, and they put on shows every weekend.
He stems from Elkins, yes.
I figure he's part of
That's
that.
Americana history
Right.
base.
And it's really well worth going to see it some weekend, if you haven't. Kids bought us a ticket for it one time. And the hotel and everything.
That's up in Elkins.
Yeah.
question for Rocky.
It's a really nice theater. You wouldn't think it was there. but-
Rocky, was it able to be repaired, or was it totaled?
Bus 127 so far, we have one estimate. You have to have at least 3 estimates, so we're waiting to see what the other 2 estimates are.
That's what was an accident there?
Yes, down around 39.
If the estimates are so much, then will they total it if it goes over so much? Is that the way that works?
Okay. Any other questions before we
Can you
start
enlarge
into
that?
the financial statements? You all have an electronic copy. It might be easier to review that than me messing with this. So the first item, well, we just finished last week the financial statements for the FY21 school year, and pretty pleased with the results. And so these are your financial statements for the year. The format of your financial statements, it starts with a MD&A, which is your management discussion and analysis, and then we get into your basic financial statements, and then it rolls into your notes, and then any supplemental reports that we include as well. There's a lot in there. It's a lot of reading. I've said many times, if you want to know anything about the board, if you'll read the notice, it pretty much explains everything about the board, everything, how we generate our revenue, how we pay our expenses, our debt, our capital, the whole 9 yards. This MD&A is about 14 pages. It's a very short report. It's in very just easy terms, tells you about the financial statements and explains them pretty well. It does a lot of comparisons from this year to last year in revenues and expenses and just different hot topics or areas of interest. So if you haven't read that, you might be interested in checking that out. I'll see this a couple different times, and I'll try not to spend too much time. If you have any questions on any of it, just ask. This is our assets. This is our net assets as of the end of 21, which is $29,726,000 compared to last year. It's $28,600,000. One thing that we're doing every year as we build the schools and invest in the capital of the board is we're increasing the value of our assets, and we'll continue to do that through the whole construction phase. You won't see any depreciation or any reduction or amortization of that until we actually start using the school. So you're going to see a little bit more of that in a minute.
You'll have to reduce that size to get it to move. You have to reduce it more in its weight. Reduce it more.
More?
Oh,
There.
success. Kevin and technology.
This one I like. This is our debt. We started the year with $8.1 million in debt for the county. By the end of the year, June of 2021, we're down to $3.5 million. We borrowed $4.1 million from the governor's office to do some of the initial work for the new schools. We were able to pay that back. We also we had a QSAP loan, a qualified zone academic bond for some property that we had, some HVAC units we had leased, and that was like, if I recall, like a 10-year property, 10-year lease agreement, and so our investments over the period of 9 years was enough that the interest actually made our 10th year payment. So saved the board about $53,000 in just
the investment, so we didn't have to make our last year's payment, which is next year's. That debt is off of us. The only thing we owe for right now is we have another QZAB for Valley River Elementary, and then we have a energy program that we owe for, and so about $3.5 million is our current debt as of June. So again, that's a lot of just an overview of where we are. We're going to talk primarily about the 4 basic statements, and there are you got to think about this in 2 different ways. You have 2 statements, which is your statement of net position and your statement of activities, which is full accrual. We take into account every single dollar that is owed to the board and every single expense that is possibly owed, and we add in all of our debt, and we add in all of our assets that we own, and we come up with a full accrual financial statement. And so it's pretty revealing and kind of gives you an overall picture of where we're at as a whole. It includes your federal and your state grants, just everything combined together. So as I was talking about, here's our cash, $25 million as of June 30th. We have some receivables in there. We had some prepaid expenses. Talks about our total assets. So our total assets in value is about $61 million. However, we've depreciated those down over years, and so our net value of our capital assets, which is our buildings and our land, our equipment, vehicles, buses, so on and so forth, is $29 million. We have right now, as of June 30th, $8.5 million invested in construction in progress, which is what we spent for the new schools. So, looking right on down, our total assets on our net position, $61 million. There's some accruals of debt. We had accrued our payroll checks for July and August, some normal operating payables, some compensated absences, which is the vacation time that some of the employees have that had been not spent or they have not used, which was about $90,000 worth. There's some accruals with our PIA and our retirement, our debt payments for next year is going to be $350,000. That's what we'll make in payments. So it boils down to here, your total net position after some restrictions is $48,915,790. So your other statement that ties into that is your statement of activities, which is the equivalent of an income statement. Last year we spent, our total expenses across all of our funds was $40,882,000. We break our revenue down into different categories, and we add, if you look at what did the county generate as a profit or a carryover or extra, taking everything into consideration, then it'll show on this statement of activities that the county had a $5,173,000 carryover. Again, you have to consider we're not showing any expense on the construction in progress yet. It's all adding to the value of our assets. So we have $8.5 million that we have in as an asset that we're not taking any expense against at this time. So that kind of overinflates that number a little bit until we take possession of the building. That number will continue to grow and grow and grow, and so we grew $5.1 million this year, and it'll continue to grow until we build it.
I mean, that's already reserved to certain projects or something.
We're going to talk about that, but yes, what we do, we take this section of equity, so what you own minus what you owe is what you're worth, that equity, then we take that and we break it down as to what is really available to the board, what is the board already committed to, what is unassigned or available. We're going to talk about that on our next statement. So those are your two fully accrued financial statements. That gives you a very good picture of the board as a whole. So this is what is traditionally called our fund statements. It breaks down, sorry about that, it breaks down our funds, our activity into 4 different funds. Our general fund, which is the one you're going to be most interested in. Your special revenue fund, which is where all our federal and our state grants are at. We have a special revenue stimulus fund now, and that's for all the CARES money and the federal monies that have come into play. And then our Fund 51, which is our capital projects fund, which is the construction of our new schools.
Kevin, are you having any issues from the state government releasing monies when we finish up?
There's a time lapse. It has to go through several different agencies and then back through those agencies for us to get it. And it's just a lengthy process. So
About 2 months.
about 60 days probably.
You know, I know we discussed that some contractors, earlier on, we discussed contractors may not like to bid on projects because of the long pay gap.
It's a possibility. It's a lot, you know, if you think about it, we're going to be spending, we're going to have $5 to $8 million a month people will want to be paid. And so if they have to wait 60 days, a lot of contractors don't have the ability to sit on $10 to $16 million and wait to get paid. So it's going to probably be a pretty big company to do it. But the one you're going to be most interested in is the general fund, and this is a modified accrual system, meaning it's not strictly cash. We accrue some revenue if it's received within the first 60 days. After the end of the year, we consider that revenue. And if it's after that 60-day period, then we don't consider that revenue. So it's a modified accrual system. Same thing with expenses. If it's paid within the first 60 days of the next year and it was for the previous year, then we record it as an expense. Otherwise, it falls in the following year. So where we had a 66, I think our total assets on the fully accrued net positions statement was $61 million. You can see the total assets here is $26 million, and basically doesn't include our capital assets or our debt. But a lot of the same numbers. You remember I said we had $25 million in cash. Well, it's the same number here. It's just broken down between all the funds. So here's probably what you're most interested in, is this bottom section here. And so again, your assets minus what your liabilities are, which for the general fund is only $3.7 million, is what you're worth, or your equity. And so this section right here is what's available to you as of June 30th. We had some non-spendable amounts, which is your prepaid insurances of $76,000. We had some restricted funds, $2,729,000. Those are funds that are restricted from an outside agency or something that's legally in place, such as the excess levy. If we had in the levy, we were going to spend $100,000 on chairs, and we hadn't spent it yet, then I would restrict that money here so that it can't be spent for anything else. So anything that's restricted from an outside source is in that area. Committed funds, $5.5 million. Those are funds that the board has committed for certain projects. Some of that is you have certain projects it's for. And the remainder of that is if you wanted to, you can move that into an area that you might need. The next section is your assigned funds, and that's basically $307,000. That is basically purchase orders that were outstanding at the end of June. They weren't in expense yet, but yet we committed to a vendor to buy them. And so we had $307,000 in those assigned funds. And then finally, your unassigned is basically what is available to the board that is not earmarked or restricted or committed in any way, and that's $11,101,826.
That last CARES money is not figured in it. This is
The CARES money's over here in this Fund 71. It's in a whole different category. All FEMA money, all CARES money, all federal, state grants, none of that is in this fund, general fund. Basically, your revenues in the general fund are state aid, excess levy, local taxes, interest,
the normal stuff.
yeah, just normal operating revenues. The unassigned amount has grown over the years. We've been able to put some money away. I believe in 2016 we had like $3 million in unassigned funds, and then we took a big jump in the next year to like, I looked these up. It jumped to like 11, and then it went back down to 8, and then 9 last year, and now we're up to 11. So it's just a steady increase over the last 4 or 5 years, which just shows that, you know, as a board, you guys have been very responsible and making good decisions and managing money. Dr. Teacher's done a great job as well, and able to identify areas that maybe we were too lax in or too strict in, and maximize those dollars in all the right spots. So yeah, that money would be available for you guys. You know, we got a lot of projects. We got schools to build. We got a elementary school to renovate, and then unforeseen amounts. We'll talk about that number as we go further, but there's a contingency amount that the state wants us to hold and leave in this, which is about 5%. So
let me hear you say that again. So in 2016, when I was hired, we had how much in unassigned?
I can't remember now.
Was that $3 million unassigned?
It was $3 million.
And now we're up to how much in unassigned?
11.1 million.
And we were able to give teachers and all staff a stipend of 2.25% last year?
It was 2-point-something% last year, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if that's something you want to entertain this year, it looks like you have the money.
That's something I will definitely be presenting to this board about giving our staff an increase in stipends.
So,
Kevin,
yeah.
you do a wonderful job. You manage, you shift the money, you get to maximize it, but it just brings joy to my ears to hear, you know, as the CEO of the board and having that much of a gain, it just really, it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, you have really done a great job, and I you know, I'm the one, probably one of the most reserved people to hand out compliments when it comes to money. She's done a great job, she really has, and through a lot of struggle over the last several years. So, but anyway, that's where we're at, June 30th. That's the number that you're always interested in, is what your unassigned value. Again, of that number, we have to account for what we use for this year's budget, so which was almost $2 million, I believe, and then they recommend a 5% contingency of your total expenses. So there's, of that unassigned, there's already a portion of it that we have to earmark out that we've already committed for this year, and you know, we're coming up on another budget year for next year, so we always have to borrow from that money. I think this year, we borrowed $1.3 million to balance our budget in March. And then we were able to put back If you look at what surplus we had this year, find it here. Oh my.
Good thing he's in bond.
So we had excess revenue over expenditures of
Two.
2,922,926.
2.9 was over, yes, we had 2.9 excess revenues over expenses. However, there were some transfers out of $568,000. So the net amount that was transferred into the unassigned amount from this statement would have been 2.3. However, we borrowed 1.3 initially. So the net increase is going to be just over $1 million. And this breaks down your revenue by fund. $39 million budget. We had $36 million in expenses. So as Mrs. Kaufman said, we had $2.9 million in excess. We had some transfers out to some of the other funds, mainly food service program, to balance theirs, which we have every year. And once we accounted for all of our transfers, we had transferred $588,000 out, more than what we transferred in. So the net change was $2.3 million. Now, one of the great things about all this stimulus money is we're allowed to charge indirect costs. And so we should be able, normally our indirect cost from federal programs is about $30,000 a year. Now, those programs are probably $6 to $7 million. Well, the stimulus package alone is $15 or $16 million, and we'll be able to get that indirect cost. All of them together. Yeah. And so that will come into the general fund to help the county offset the any expenses we may have in implementing and getting those programs started.
So when is that last money going to be to where we can utilize it? Like, you were talking about like being able to build the outside spaces, for instruction and all that.
It's been
that hasn't
approved.
came down yet, has it, that money?
I don't know. We haven't received any of those funds yet. It's been approved, right?
Yeah, it's been submitted. We're waiting. The first percent they send automatically, like 25%.
Right.
But then the rest of it has been sent to Charleston. We're just waiting on them.
Yeah. So I don't think we have physically received our share yet.
That's in the works.
But we can start. We can start those projects now, I assume, without any issue.
Not materials are up, it might not be a good time.
Exactly. Yes. That's pretty much your four statements. This statement here reconciles the difference between the full accruals statements and the modified accrual statements. This statement here is a statement of fiduciary funds, which is all the monies in the schools. So if you add up their cash for all 14 schools, there's a little bit over $1 million at the school level. And then some supplementary statements. It just takes the budget for each category and compares it to actual. See how close we were on our numbers. Same deal. Some excess levy history. How much we'd spend in every category that's in the levy call. We pretty much have that levy call that expired in June. Pretty much all of it was fully expended. So there's just a little bit of carryover from those funds that we'll be trying to spend in this fiscal year. There's a breakdown of your schools and the available cash in each one of those. And then we start into the notes. And the notes is like 38 pages long. And so it goes into a lot of detail into every category of the board. So if there's any questions you might have in there, I'd be happy to try to answer those for you.
I got a question on these cash balances for each individual school. Is the reason the high schools are so much is because of, like, I guess their gate monies and stuff from sports events? Is that much? Does that money figure into that, or
it is all of the monies that they have, yes, at their school level. So it's faculty senate money, it's athletic money, it's gate money, it's little small grants, it's fundraisers that every little group has. What it boils down to, if you look at balance on, say, Nicholas County High School,
Yeah.
$348,000, well, most of that is tied up in some type of program. If you get down to, right down to the school itself, very, very little would they have as unassigned or unencumbered.
Like your honor society has a fund in there, your cheerleaders have a fund in there, your band.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of flexibility. They probably have more than any other school, but it's a large school to run as well. So.
Yeah, that was the biggest school.
Kevin, educate us a little bit. What does the word accrual mean?
Accrual? Accrual is, so you accrue expenses. So it is the accounting for revenues or expenses that have occurred in a certain period that you've not realized yet. So for example, let me think of a good example. Maybe I have received a bunch of iPhones, we bought them, and we have them here, but we haven't paid the bill because we haven't received the invoice yet. So I will accrue that expense. The only way it gets into my books is when I write the check.
Yeah.
And so if I've received the goods and I haven't paid the invoice yet, but it was for this year, I received them in this year,
Right.
then I have an expense in this year that I won't pay for the next. So I accrue, or I add these expenses and record that expense in the current year because that's when we actually purchased and received the iPhones. So it's really just trying to match the revenues and expenses with the correct time frame. Does that make sense? Same thing with revenues. If we're due, say someone owes us money at the end of the year and they haven't paid us yet, well, we say it was for lunches, for example. We had a big lunch bill that somebody had run up, and they owed us. We'd given them the lunch. We'd earned that, but we hadn't been paid for that yet. So we would take that receivable amount and add it to our revenues because we realized that expense. That
little short word can cover a lot of territory.
Yeah, it creates a lot of extra work. If it was add up the deposits and subtract the expenses, we could be done in a couple of days, but we worked on them for about 3 months actually.
They're always moving.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Hess, after this, we approve this financial statement, which you'll submit to the state at the end of, or soon, I guess sometime soon.
Yes.
And then it has to be audited, is that correct?
That is correct. We have an independent accounting firm that comes in usually February to perform an audit.
And then they'll get audited.
They get audited to see if they do.
That they audited us, right?
See if they do a great job.
I think you're telling us we're okay for right now.
We're okay for right now. Yeah, we're okay. We're a little better than we were last year.
Good, good.
The excess levy, when does that get sent out to each one of the schools? Like for their facilities and all that?
Most of the revenue, let me think if there's any. All of the revenue is allocated to the schools from here. Mm-hmm. So if they want to spend any, we give them an allocation sheet in the spring of this is how much money you have for supplies, this is how much money you have for technology. And so then they'll requisition that through a purchase order through this office, and we'll approve it, order it, and pay for it for them. It gets delivered to their school. And that's available July 1. They can start spending on that July 1 of every year.
But it covers the 4 years, right?
5 years.
Something,
Yeah, they get a new allocation every year.
year.
Every year, so. 1 year at a time.
This is the first year of our new levy, isn't it?
Yes.
Is the old levy completely expended?
It is about 99% expense. There's a couple little dollars in there that we weren't able to, the expense hasn't hit yet for us to pay it, so we're holding that money in that restricted area down here. Where well, in our, when we're on that side, we are restricting our funds so that we can't spend it, because it's been held in reserve for that particular purpose.
Any further questions for Mr. Hess? Kevin, you've done a great job, and I think you and the superintendent have done a wonderful job in monitoring finances, and just keep up the good work. Thank you.
We make a good team.
We do.
Well, you know, I think Nichols County is very fortunate. We're really blessed here because, I mean, you see with some of these other counties, they are really scrambling like to make ends meet, and it's really, we're blessed here that we have such a good team. I mean, we have a really good team.
Every single
I'm
office
really
here.
proud to serve on this board. The directors, I mean, the staff, I mean, the teachers, it's just really glad to be able to sit on a board like this.
Kevin, just maybe a year or so ago, there were a number of counties that were under financial watch in the state, and we weren't one of them, but we have been blessed. Is there a motion to approve consent item A, which deals with payment of current invoices and a contract with Mick Suter, and approval of the FY 2021 financial statement?
Make a motion.
Mr. Berry moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mrs. Kaufman seconds. Any further discussion in regard to the finance items considered this evening? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, motion passes unanimously. Mrs. Atkins, Madam Superintendent, board members, is there a need for an executive session relative to personnel matters?
No.
Mrs. Atkins.
All right, I passed out two documents to you. One is the updated personnel agenda, and the other is the current list of vacancies. We've dropped from 27 to 22, so we are making some progress on that, and that will be current as of assuming that you're going to approve this agenda tonight. So for the changes on the personnel agenda, your changes are in red. An updated copy has been provided to the public and members of the press, but I will read the changes to you. Under professional, Everett Hayhurst, employee in the position of welding teacher at Nicholas County Career and Technical Center, effective upon WVDE approval. Samantha Kalnaugh, employee in the position of agricultural, food, natural resources instructor teacher at Nicholas County Career and Technical College, effective upon WVDE approval. Nancy Long, employee in the position of 6th grade teacher at Summersville Middle School, effective for the 22-23 school year. We struck the science teacher at Summersville Middle School. We did not have a recommendation for that. Troy Spinks, employee in the position of substitute teacher for Nicholas County Schools, effective upon WVDE approval. And Terry Thomas II, employee in the position of restricted substitute teacher for Nicholas County Schools, effective upon WVDE approval. Under service, Tina Lucas, employee in the position of custodian 3 at Zila Elementary School, effective October 6, 2021. The applicants that we had for the cook at Summersville Elementary School were not in our system, so we're going to have to give them the cook test, and we have that scheduled, so we'll likely hire those two positions, that position at the next board meeting. Ricky Blankenship, employee in the position of Transportation Instruction Aide 2 at Mount Lookout Elementary School, effective October 5th, 2021. On page 2, Janet Davis, employee in the position of halftime cook at Richwood High School, effective August 5th, 2021. Dusty Summers, employee in the position of long-term substitute custodian 3 at Summersville Middle School, effective October 5th, 2021. Joanne Hickman, employee in the position of early education classroom assistant teacher, transportation aide at Cherry River Elementary School, effective October 5th, 2021. Tina Brown, employing the position of Transportation Instruction Aide 2 at Mount Nebo Elementary School, effective upon the hire of her replacement. Under professional extracurricular, we did not have applicants for the Journey of Hope positions at Cherry River or Golly River, so those positions have been struck. Donna Deaver, employee in the position of Journey of Hope after-school counselor at Somerville Elementary School, effective at the direction of the program coordinator. And we did not have any applicants for the interventionist at Birch River. That should be struck as well.
Is that a new program, the Journey of Hope after school? Is that a new program?
It's through Save the Children, and I think Dr. Lee could probably give you a little more details on that.
It's a new position within that program, within the after-school program.
Under Service Extracurricular, Angela Breedlove, employee in the position of Parent Coordinator at Zela Elementary School, effective at the direction of the building principal. On page 3, there's one change at the bottom of the page. Approve the job shadowing placement of Michaela Browning, social work student from Marshall University. She's just going to shadow one of our social workers. And then also on page 4, you have a copy of the leave requests. I will not read those aloud to protect the privacy of our employees.
Now, the items that are struck, will they be reposted, most of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a side question. Certified list, I know that goes in sometime. When is that required to be in?
October 11th.
October 11th. What about our enrollment for our schools? When is that to be calculated, Mr. Hanshaw?
Our principal's submission is due tomorrow or Thursday, and superintendent's submission is due on the 21st. So I can give you preliminary numbers the first meeting, and, well, I can try to give you some preliminaries on the, is it the 19th? 18th.
Okay. And maybe final numbers in like November?
I think November was when they send those to Kevin. Don't they usually send those?
It's around the middle of December, actually.
Oh, okay. But you can give us some preliminary numbers.
I can give you some preliminary, I'll give you a report next board meeting.
Appreciate it.
And our certified list is in record time. Melissa came up with a wonderful system. Kim Boletto has been working very hard, and they're actually ready to submit that list several days ahead of schedule, and people are usually doing it the last minute. And we used to also have multiple pages of people who were not certified. We're down to one teacher in the county. So it's all been, it's unbelievable the work that's been accomplished here.
Did a lot of these vacated move to another position somewhere else? Is that what happened on that? Or did we lose them completely?
Where
on your sheet with the
some of them are retirements, some of them are people we've lost completely, and some of them are people that have moved on to other positions. It's kind of a mix.
Thank you.
And some of them are new. There's 3 on here that are new that have never been filled. 4 that are new that have never been filled.
I'm assuming we have subs in this now, currently.
I believe so.
Okay, are there any further questions for Mrs. Atkins in regard to personnel matters? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the personnel agenda as presented this evening? Mr. Amy Booz, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Berry, seconds. Any further discussion in regard to personnel matters? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Madam Superintendent, I'm assuming the affidavit is...
I have brief updates.
So I have an update on canopies for Richwood. It's been a challenge trying to get that situation resolved. But Rocky has worked with his maintenance men, and they've actually come up with a solution to secure the walkways. And so the original bid that we had out for the entire walkway system to be redone is not necessary now, so we're going to be doing another bid. He's working on a bid for just the canopy replacement, which will be covered under the insurance, or it should be covered completely under the insurance. So that's something that is in the works, and like I said, they come up with some pretty good solutions, so I think we're in good shape there. We had and Rocky, you might have to correct me if I say this wrong, but the G-force rating for was it G-force?
G-max at the turf.
G-max rating. So we had a G-max rating done for Nicholas County High School on the turf, because it's been down for quite a long time. Thankfully, because I wanted to make sure that it was a safe playing surface for our students, and thankfully it did meet standards. So we do have some plans in the work to redo that field probably next summer, and rehab the stadium as well. And I want to brag on my career technical education. Tom Bayless, he took several of his staff members to the ACT Best Practices and Innovations Conference in Texas, and they knocked it out of the park. They presented nationally and on the exploratory program of our 9th grade students, and the big boxes that they developed as a need to, which was boxed activities, and I think you may have shown those to the board before. Yeah, the boxed activities, so people were pretty excited to see that, and he's even shared text messages from other states of individuals who are just amazed at what's being done at our Career Center. So I just wanted to give a big kudos to the team at the Career Center for doing such a good job on the national presentation.
Congratulations, yeah.
Could you give us a COVID update?
Okay, what
On
type of
schools.
COVID update?
A COVID update on the schools? How are we doing?
The notice that I sent out Friday,
Uh-huh.
I think it's 4 schools.
4 schools.
4 schools.
So
The
we
numbers
had 9, and then we wore masks, and then it went down to none, and then we took off the masks, and it went back up to 4. Is that right?
It went down to, I'd have to look at it, I can't tell you. I'm not prepared to answer it, but I can just tell you we're at 4, and it was just barely over. And I do those percentages, I send them out so everyone can see exactly what percentage that we're at on those 4.
Well, we would have to attribute that to masks, wouldn't we?
I don't know. Only thing I can tell you is we were down to 4, and with the masking requirements and the way that the state has us to address that with both parties being masked, then of course there won't be contact tracing.
Well, it's going down all over the state. And,
Right.
and there are 53 out of 55 counties that have mask mandates.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no place, no organization except the schools that have this many people confined to this many small spaces for long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
The masks are working.
Let me explain something that I don't know if you've thought about, but when you have a teacher, and I'm just going to say an elementary school, and they're both masked all day long, you don't have to contact trace. But what happens when you're in that same elementary classroom and you have to have your mask off during lunchtime? You've got an exposure because your mask is off more than 15 minutes. So that's one of the things that a parent brought up to me and was very upset about. And I said, I understand, but I'm trying to offer mask mitigation that will satisfy. But that's what was brought up, that the students have to wear a mask all day long, and how silly it was for her child to have to wear the mask all day long, and then while at lunchtime they're having to sit in a classroom, and if someone has COVID, then you've got an exposure there. So Only thing I can say is, I still feel confident in the plan that I'm moving forward with, and I think, you know, I'm getting some pretty positive remarks, and I'm getting, of course, not everyone is happy. Some people are happy, some people are not, but I think it's been a pretty even balance.
We'll see, won't we?
I
But
don't,
the issue, though,
What you
is if we, when they were wearing masks, we do not have to contact trace.
exactly,
Okay.
yes,
If they're not wearing masks, we do.
yes.
So that was the issue, is we're sending kids home. It has really nothing to do with the number of cases of COVID. It's just that we're sending kids home
That's right.
without the mask, and when they have the mask, we just don't have to contact trace. There's still the potential for people to have the ailment, but it's just a matter of that has nothing to do with that we're identifying people that have COVID in our schools. We're just simply either contact tracing or not.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Roughly 90% of the people who are quarantined end up testing negative or do not develop symptoms.
90%, did you say?
Thereabouts, yeah. So, you know, like I said, you can look at it, everybody has different opinions and on the subject. I've gotten a lot of positive responses for the approach that we've taken in Nicholas County schools. And when you have such a low number of students who are actually testing positive, and in most cases, they're testing positive from parents, and then, you know, it's the quarantining that's occurring. So I feel like we're being pretty responsible, and, you know, the health department, I've got an email I didn't share, but of course, Michelle Wonderwood was has been very supportive, you know, of our approach. So, you know, and I don't want to argue with anyone about it. It's just, I believe it's the best approach. That's how I plan to move forward.
I have a couple questions for you. I've been approached by some of my fellow veterans, and they wanted to know why the ROTC wasn't participating as much as in the past. And I said it's probably due to COVID. I said we got a new man in there. Sergeant Long's no longer with us, and I know he went the extra mile. But if you don't care, kind of check in and see if that's COVID or...
I can. Did they mention anything about what they were not participating in that they normally did?
Parades. And, you know, apparently they're just not helping like they were. And I said, well, schools have been going through a lot, and it could be due to COVID, but I don't know. But I said, I know that the superintendent will check into that.
Well, one of the things that I do know is that I don't know the other gentleman as well, but I know Sergeant Maddie is wonderful. You know, there's a stickler for rules. So I'm not sure to what extent, you know, the participation, if it's parades, I will definitely inquire. I can even ask them to come up here and present to the board as well. I'd be happy to, but I'm really not sure. I will definitely ask.
And we do have, those are two new people to that position.
I
too,
said
so we
that.
had-
I said that.
Well, didn't we just give somebody in ROTC a 220 contract?
That's the person we just hired.
Okay. Might have been
They
sure.
may not be aware of everything
Yeah, I
that
don't-
previous.
Yeah, I don't think it was a matter of the days yet, because that runs into summer. That's the summertime. But it's a matter, it could be just not being aware. And I have no idea which programs, and if Sergeant Long, you know, since he's no longer here, yeah, they probably aren't aware.
I have another question. Had a teacher call me and say, we are stressed again. And I said, we understand. Everyone is. Not only here, the medical field, we're stressed. I mean, we're at war with this invisible enemy. And she said it is really hard when you have kids that are quarantined and not at school, and you have to send them their work. Plus, said this year we have more students. And she said, I can't imagine what it's like on the secondary level. And I said, well, and she said, do you have any suggestions? And I said, the superintendent, the central staff, the principals were all aware of this. The board, we're trying to help every way we can. And I said, do you have any suggestions? She said, well, if there was someone that could take care of the kids' assignments that are not in school. And I said, well, you'll run into a little bit there of making sure what the teacher's wanting and what this person would assign, but I said, we'll look into it. And I know we're going to try to help all of our people. We always have. And I was glad with Kevin's report, but I told her I would bring it up. And we would see what we could do.
It is really stressful for the staff right now. And last year they have Wednesdays that they could work with the students. They don't have that this year.
That's what she said.
Our students are back, and the state is not supportive of elementary ed on distance learning. So our classrooms are fuller. We have more students. And because of that, it did help when we were on, some of our students were doing distance learning and stuff last year. We were able to have smaller class sizes. So now they're back in. We don't have the distances that we had last year, and that's one of the challenges we have.
Right.
So if they're in a classroom all day long and they're both masked, you don't have to contact trace. But if they're in there eating lunch together, you don't have the social distancing, you have the mask off for more than 15 minutes, you get someone positive, you've got the issue and you're sending kids home, whether it be 2 or 3 or we're down 22 teachers being able to fill current positions. So it is a challenge. One of the things that, and Sarah Lee is here, with us now, and Chris Hanshaw's pretty, he's good at this also. But one of the things that is, I think, is helpful is with the iPads, if they can start, loading things on those iPads every week, and that way if a student goes home, then they have the ability to do their work and get caught up with, it's more self-directed learning. I feel sorry for staff right now. It is very hard on them.
Well, this teacher wasn't critical.
I understand, but it's so hard on them. I agree with you. I agree. That's why I am definitely going to come before the board. That's why I was jumping up in the air and happy about, our how much money we have, because I'm going to ask for another stipend, COVID stipend for our staff this year. So I'll be presenting that to this board.
Would that kind of be like the snow packets?
It would be, and it's on the iPad, yes. And some are doing I don't know if we need more PD. I mean, it takes a lot of planning. I mean, it takes a lot of event. You're doing your lesson plans. You do your lesson plans. You front load the assignments. Some of the things that we're trying to transition from, handing out paper. We don't want to hand out paper. We're saying take a picture of it with the iPad, have it on the iPad so the students can do it that way. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of challenges. And they have a tough job right now. They do.
Mrs. Gregory, how many students do we have that are, they would be on our books, so to speak, are doing just total distance learning? Do we have any students like
Total
that?
virtual,
Total virtual.
I have right around 40.
Around 40 kids. Now, those are kids who, they're not coming to the schools at all.
Correct.
Okay, they're just doing digital learning. And now, I'm assuming that the teacher speaking of would have to deal with those.
No, they do not.
They do not.
That's total through the SESC proximity learning.
Okay, that's through proximity learning, then, okay. So the ones that this teacher's talking about are those students who've been quarantined and sent home, and those are on digital learning.
Yes, and that's the challenge.
Well, some distance learning students have a person that they have to refer to at one of the schools. So they're in charge of the distance learning and making sure that they get their assignments and they get them in and that they have a question. So
Is
It-
that-
It's still the responsibility of the system.
I'm not sure what you're referencing, because proximity learning handles our students.
Yeah, well, my grandson's doing distance learning, and he
It's
he
not handled at the
regularly
school.
contacts the people at the VOTEC, Mr.
Oh,
McPherson.
well, if he's going to the career center, that would be different.
I think he's enrolled in that college class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. McPherson.
That's different. That's different.
Well, there used to be aides. Is there still a program that provides teachers aides? I mean, is there anything like that anymore? We had teachers aides
For,
in the classroom.
to do what?
We had teachers aides in the classroom to assist.
Well,
And
that was.
The report, we have 40-some aides, I think, right now.
I think, Roy, what you're referring to is the aides were in the classroom when there were some special ed students in the regular classroom, and they were in there to help them.
no, we had aides that were there all the time, did anything that we needed done.
I don't think
I
that they
think
have
that was
aids like that
illegal.
anymore.
That
It's like-
that must have been at Richwood, because we didn't
No,
have that at
it's-
Summersville.
no,
Now,
I
we didn't
didn't-
have them for
And you
special ed.
we can't hire enough people to fill the 8 positions we've got currently. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
understand.
that may have
special
been
ed.
from that grant that they got,
Yeah,
A few
it may
years
have,
ago.
it may have been something when they got that grant.
but I don't think everybody had that.
Okay, I have one more question. And my questions end up with sidebars for my brothers and sisters here. And they reinforce it. But have we had time to look into what Dr. Lee talked to us about?
About the ambulance.
About the help?
I've met personally with a few people, such as the 911 director, to kind of get some input from them, but we have not had a formal in-house meeting.
So after we left here, I talked to her and told her, take the lead. So she's assembles whoever.
Gathering information.
She's gathering, so she's taken the lead on that, and so
Well,
she's.
I just want to reiterate what's already been said here by some of my brother and sisters. We all have got to stick together. We have a critical war on our hands. I'd like to say it's at its peak and going to go down, but right now it's bad. And we want our students to have a normal, well-educated life as we can possibly give them. But we're under attack from this COVID. We just have to be careful on everything and work together. There's no need for me to attack Mr. Penix over his point of view or something. And I just think that the staff here, they're trying to do everything they can, and we want to try to help as a board as much as we can.
Well stated, and thank you.
Well, I kind of watched the map, the colored map. It was down to, what was it, like 7 counties? All the rest of the state was in red, but I think today I looked and it was like over half of the counties now are out of the red. So it looks like it is improving. The governor's saying he thinks we're on the downhill slide. That's the governor. Maybe things are starting to improve a little bit, I hope. But then there'll probably be something else come along. So.
Just like to ask a question. Are you hearing much from the schools in regard to, from the counseling, social working point of view, some of the issues that we're facing with students as a result of all of the confluence of everything involved with this pandemic? Are we seeing more stress, and if so, what kinds, and that type of thing?
We are seeing more stress. We're seeing more students coming into me for expulsion at a much higher rate than, they have been. You see a lot of anger and aggression. You see, marijuana use up. There's a lot of things like that. Talking to other counties and seeing things that's happening, you've got suicide rates up. The mental health of students is often overlooked, I fear, but in this county, I believe that we're doing a pretty good job. We have all the social workers hired. Thankfully, this board had the foresight to approve that, and that was prior to the pandemic. It's been wonderful. We've increased the number of counselors. That's been wonderful. We increased the psychologist. Tammy Gregory is here. She can probably better speak to that. We've got Mike Williams who supervises it. So I will tell you, with all of those additional stressors, we've been very fortunate with the team that we have in place. They go out, they go in homes, they're monitoring. I mean, there's been a lot of turmoil. I see increased numbers of porn, on student phones and things like that. So it's a sad day for our nation, but I will tell you that we are I think we're doing a pretty good job in Nicholas County in addressing those issues.
I heard the psychologist speak about risk assessment. I'm assuming if she's out in school doing some training, then that's helping people out there identify earlier.
Our counselors are trained, yes, and so we have risk assessments completed on students to determine if they've made a statement that's just off the cuff, or whether it's a statement that the person may seriously be intending on hurting another student. They've done a wonderful job. They did that training a couple of years ago, and they continuously do the training to keep everyone versed in it. But that's just something that was as a result. Actually, this board is the one, you guys, when you were doing all the expulsion hearings, one of you had brought it up and said, can't you do something to try to assess the risk of these students? And as a result of this board's request in an expulsion hearing, that's exactly what we did. And we've continued it and we strengthened it.
Yeah, that's a national problem, and several studies have been out regarding that.
It's bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you do other than continue to give supports and educate people. And as I said in the beginning, in opening school, when I brought the state superintendent here, I've asked everyone to be kind, have grace and compassion, and help our kids get through these troubling times. And once we do that, we meet their basic needs, then we can educate them. People are hurting, and they're going to continue to hurt. And being harsh and nasty and mean doesn't help anyone. And I stress that constantly to everyone. Let's be compassionate to our fellow man and do what we can to help. And we've got great staff in these schools, and I believe that's what they're doing.
And Mr. Vandick, I understand. I do think teachers are at the max right now and trying to juggle everything that they're having to deal with. And it's a new day, guys. New world.
So board, be mindful of that when I come back and ask to give all the employees a 2.25% stipend again this year. It was a nice little boost for a lot of people right before Christmas. So I'll be asking again.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Reports, the SESC did meet, and it was a pretty generic meeting, not anything major to report out to this board at this time. Bright Horizons?
No, we didn't meet yet.
And you all have not met, okay. Madam Secretary, are there any delegations?
No, sir.
Okay. Items for future agendas?
The attendance.
The attendance and the enrollment.
Yeah.
Okay. Our future meeting dates are, you can see them listed there. I'm not going to read through each of those. I will point out item C remember, in November, we start our 3 meetings with our local school improvement councils. And our first one will be at Cherry River Elementary, and it will involve Cherry River, Richwood High, Richwood Middle, and Panther Creek Elementary. So that is on a Tuesday night, so be sure to mark your calendar down. We have the October 18th meeting, the November 1st meeting, and then the November 15th are regular meetings on Monday nights, and they're held here. Is there any further business?
You wanted to set a meeting for superintendent?
That's right. We need to have a goal-setting meeting sometime this month.
Gosh, I got a year already.
Yeah. What's it look like? Anybody?
September, October, busy.
Yeah.
No, I don't have my phone. I'm not allowed to have my phone.
I'm turning mine on.
You want mine? You want to check on it, and I mean, we can name some dates, and then you check and get back, and then we'll work it out with the superintendent. And we can do this during the day. It's a goal setting. You know, we can do it in the morning at some time if you all want to do it that way.
What month are you talking, or thinking?
October.
What does the 14th look like?
Thursday.
The can't hold 15 here, but how about the 19th, which is a Tuesday? That'd be after the next Monday night on Tuesday. Maybe we do it in the morning at 9 o'clock or something like that. It shouldn't take us more long. And Roy, check your calendar out and see.
The 19th at 9.
19th. How about you guys? 19th. Or I can do it in the evening if you want to. Would you prefer evening?
I think I've got a tour bus coming in that day. Well, but it'll be at 2 o'clock, so we have to be in the morning.
The 19th at 9 o'clock, and check your calendar out, and then we can.
The 19th?
19th.
Oh, I thought you said the 9th. I'm
That's a
sorry.
Tuesday.
9th's a Saturday.
Okay.
Well, since I turned my phone on, it's going to ring a ding ding.
Yeah, mine did too.
October 19th, 9 o'clock, correct?
Yes, that's a Tuesday, and it's the day after a regular meeting on the 18th. Madam Superintendent, does that work for you?
Fortunately.
9 a.m.
Okay, let's.
Now, that will be at the vocational,
That'd be here,
Center.
here, wouldn't it, or?
Yeah.
let me finish, Phil. They serve breakfast over there.
Oh.
Oh! I think Mr. Hendricks is making a valid point here.
What do you think, Tom?
We'll take care of it.
At 9 o'clock, location to be determined. We might take up on that. Okay.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
That's for next budget.
It's a special meeting for goal setting.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Madam Secretary, for reminding me of that. And is there a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
Make it.
Mr. Berry moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Kaufman seconds. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, we're adjourned at 7:12 p.m.